Welcome back, my fellow Admiral want-to-bees. We are looking today at naval combat in Pacific War, GMT Games, The Struggle Against Japan, 41-45, game design Mark Herman. And I've been rather obsessed with this game lately because it's like a small Pacific sandbox where I can mess around and do fun things. I have not even played a full game yet. I have just messed around with the engagement scenarios a little bit, but in learning the rules, I have been staging my own amphibious assaults and naval battles and things like that. So one of the fun things is actual naval combat because it's like a mini game in itself. So naval combat's going to be a thing where you can bring in your own ships. You'll pull in 4 ships at a time from your task force sheet, and they're going to square off against one another at different ranges and things like that. So let's go back to the beginning and see what determines some factors that take place in naval combat. So the process, the combat itself is pretty simple, but it's the decisions that you make and your opponent make that make it pretty interesting. So, all right, let's take a look here at how this starts. Okay, let's pretend, shall we have 2 task force here, and this is completely random. This is probably not going to be an in-game situation, but I just want to kind of get into it and show you how it works. We have 2, let me just fix this light here. We have 2 task force 19 and task force 27, both detected. And the way this is arranged out is you're going to look on your task force sheet to see how you've got that set up. Now remember, only capital ships can be placed. Capital ships and AA naval units, or like, for example, naval units transporting ground units, can be placed in the core task force box. So let's just take a look at this. I made 2 simple task force. This is a really easy setup. So if you look here, here's task force 19. We have our capital ship here, the Nagato, which is a battleship, in the core, and we'll put the destroyer here in the screen. Now, if you want to know how or where they can go, you'll have to take a look in the rule book, and you'll want to look at the classification, which, let me just flip through here real quick. I believe it's back on page 7. They will tell you the naval type abbreviations that you can use and what goes where. And then the United States has Task Force 27. Again, this is a pretty easily set up thing to make this as simple as possible. Here's the Indiana in the core slot here, and here is a destroyer, the Fletcher, in the screen slot. And these 2 task force are going to bump uglies here in the middle of the Coral Sea. Okay, when opposing task forces occupy the same hex, this is going to kick off naval combat. Now, before you go into the naval combat, you do want to know if either side has surprise. This is going to be determined by if one side's detected and one is not. So, for example, if you saw something like this, and the Japanese, they're detected here, and the U.S. task force is not. For this, we're just going to say both are detected to keep the overhead low for this little lesson that I'm learning here. If you want to know more about the detection part, or the surprise part, you want to look on page 51 of the core rules. It's 29.1, and you can see there's different things that happens if one goes in, is detected, etc. It's going to determine who gets to. Someone might get to shoot first in the first naval phase. There's 4 naval phases, so someone might be able to shoot without the other person firing back. For this, we're just going to say they're both detected, and we're just going to move and say they've entered the same hex. If you do get surprise, we're going to move to the combat board here. But if you do have surprise, there's actually a place to put the marker, so don't need to worry too much about that. We're going to go to this real quick. And if you do have surprise, you can put the appropriate marker right here to kind of help you remember that. And since they're both detected, we go straight to naval phase 1. I'm going to show you what happens now. Okay, once this happens, each player is going to take 4 naval units from your task force on the combat display, or from his engaged task force, and he's going to place them on the display. If you have less than 4, then just put everything you have out there. So like I showed you, there's only 2 ships in each of this naval combat phase. So the Japanese player is going to put all of his units out. like so. The Nagato and the Fubuki, and then we're going to get the Fletcher and the Indiana out there. All right. Now, another cool thing you have to do before you start this is determine the opening engagement range. All right, you might notice that I've highlighted something on my display sheet here, the horror. Because it took me forever to find this table. I don't know why I had such a hard time finding this, but it's tucked away right above here like an idiot. I didn't notice it. So we are in open water, and we're going to say it's daytime. So our fight is going to begin at long range right here. Now, there's no range bands on the combat sheet. I mean, I guess if you wanted to, you can move them toward the back. And then what I did with my buddy this weekend was we just kind of, every time we switched reins or range changed or something like that, we would just move them like a little bit closer. I kind of wish there were some bands on here, but it's not really needed because individual units here are not going to get left behind on different bands. So for now, you know, we're at long range at the moment, so we're just going to do this. Now, there's some markers you may want to put. Another thing we like to do is just to kind of remind ourselves is to put like a long range marker down. So mileage may vary. You may want to do something like this. I mean, you're going to need these later when you bid. So, okay. So for now, you're just going to want to know you're at long range. Okay, and you can see where if you're in open water and it's nighttime, it's going to be medium. And there's coastal and restricted waters as well. Just use this table to determine your initial one. Coming up in the next naval phases that come up, you're going to be bidding. Each of you is actually going to bid by revealing a chit, which is very cool. We'll go into that in just a second. All right, so combat for naval combat here is all simultaneous. So you have to declare all your targets before you start firing. So you can't, for example, shoot at one ship, hope to sink it, and then be like, oh, well, now I'm just going to pick this target. Any shots that you don't get to fire are just wasted. So for this, it's simultaneous. We're going to say, now remember, we're at long range. If you remember my other video where we looked at the counters, your gunnery strength according to range is down at the bottom of this counter. Now you're going to notice that long range, we go short, medium, long. This is your gunnery strength. You'll notice that the Fubuki here has a 0 with a 4. And if you remember, the rules for this little number here indicate that you need to roll a 0 and then you need to roll below a 4 here. So him hitting at long range is really weird. Almost impossible. So let's look at some other weapons. Excuse me. The Fubuki also has torpedoes, but torpedoes don't do long range. You've got short and medium on here. So this is a really tough range to start at. The American ships are pretty much the same. However, the Americans do not have a medium range torpedo. They only have T4 or torpedo 4. So that's short range. So the Japanese torpedoes are a little bit better. They can fire a little bit earlier. So let's kind of match these up too. Maybe we put the two battleships against each other like that. I do have to move them a little bit closer to keep them on camera. So, all right, basically now it's going to come down to declaring your shots. And I'm just going to say, I mean, this is a pretty long-range gamble. We could try it and see if they hit. I'll do some live rolling, but I doubt they're going to hit. But you never know. A 0 is a critical hit. Anytime a 0 is rolled when you conduct combat against a naval or a naval unit, a critical hit occurs. Immediately roll the die again and refer to the critical hit table, applying any additional hits as specified. So there's always a chance something odd happens, but we'll give it a shot. All right, so it's simultaneous, so it doesn't matter who declares what. The Nagato will be firing at the Indiana, and then these two destroyers will be firing at each other just for the heck of it. Let's see what happens. Now, if you remember correctly, the amount of hits that you can take are on the other side of the counters here. So there's a 7 hit points, if you want to call it that, and they can be crippled. The destroyers come in with a 6. And then the Japanese side, you've got a 6, which is 1 less than the American battleship, and then their destroyer is at a 6. All right, so let's do an example roll here. Okay, for this we're going to need our naval or our combat chart. And normally you would use this. Okay. I'm going to cheat a little bit today. I'm going to go with a printout that I found on Board Game Geek. And we're going to cheat. We're going to use this. Naval gunnery combat, long range versus naval. Okay. Just because it helps me, because I'm old, and it helps me to just kind of look at things a little bit better here. Okay, the Indiana's going to fire. It's covered up with paper right now, but he has a naval gunnery strength of 2 at long range. So we're going to be looking at this column, and we're going to need a 0, 1, 2, or 3, and that is a miss. Then the Fletcher's going to go, and he has a 0 with the notation on it. I need a 0, and that's going to be a miss. Okay, nothing exciting happened there. Now, if the rolls get really pathetic and I'm not doing anything, I might advance this forward a little bit and kind of cheat some, but we'll do the first round. It'll be a live roll at least. Okay, the Nagato's going to fire, and he has a 1 long range strength. We're going to need a 1 or a 0 or a 1 here. No, that's a 6. And then the Fubuki's going to go. Uh-oh. Well, look at that. I actually rolled a 0. But we're not done. That doesn't mean it's a hit or a crit. Now we have to get 4 or less to score the hit. Oh, you saw this live, folks. I did score a hit, and it's a 1. So at long range, I had a miracle shot, and we're going to put a hit on the Fletcher. All right, so you want to take one of your Pacific War hit counters. And what I was doing was simply, you might have a lot of units in here, because you can bring in 4 naval units around, so this might get super packed. But for now, I'm just going to put the hit right behind here on the Fletcher like that. And that's going to finish our first combat naval phase 1, as I like to call it. Now the fun part starts. What you're going to do is you're going to bid and try to either reduce or extend your range, etc., etc. So one of the things you want to think about here that makes this a nice cat and mouse topic is the Japanese have medium strength torpedoes and the United States doesn't. So if the Japanese get within medium, they have more things to fire at the U.S. So I think that they would bid medium, and the U.S. would probably want to close as well to get better gunnery abilities. So maybe they would both bid medium, and I was also thinking of a way to do like a solo thing where it's random, but the bids are influenced by how many hits are on a ship, or if you want to withdraw, etc. You know, if this is more than half hits, the bot player would choose withdraw or something like that. But let's go into some of the options here that you can bid. All right, during Naval Phase 2, before that starts, each player can take 4 more naval units and put them into the combat board. So if your task force had some more stuff in here, you could suck 4 more up into the battle. And I do like that because it represents like the two massive task force getting drawn into a huge naval battle, and the numbers just build up over time as the battle goes on. Okay, so you're going to notice there's some markers here. Each player is going to get 2 of these, like so, and you're going to bid on these by covering them up and revealing them. So, for example, range, medium, short, range, short, medium. Then there's the long range, but on the back of that is a W for withdrawal if you want to pull out of the combat. So each player is going to get 1 of these, and they're going to bid. Now, the things that you can bid on, there are some rules before you can just say, oh, I'm just going to bid short all the time or something weird like that. You can only bid long range if it's open water and if it's day or dusk. You can bid medium in open water or coastal water in any lighting condition, and short can be bid in any type of water in any lighting condition. And it should also be noted that whenever an amphibious assault unit takes a hit, there's a chance 2 hits are going to be inflicted on the total steps or the things that are being carried, so you can damage the passengers, but we don't have any amphibious assault vehicles right now. So it's kind of interesting. You can direct your fire at the amphibious assault vehicles and blow them up. So as you can see, we're in open water. It's daylight, so we can kind of pretty much bid on anything. And we're going to do that now. So keep in mind the Japanese player kind of wants to get within medium so we can at least launch these torpedoes and have a little bit more firepower going into the Americans. So each player is going to take these and pick a range, keeping it secret. So let's see we're doing the Japanese. He's gonna take his range short token here, and he's gonna flip that over to medium. He's gonna bid medium secretly here. Okay. The allied player is thinking, I need to get close too because I want to get more power on my guns. He doesn't have the best destroyer here. The Fletcher's already damaged. We're going to go over that in just a second, what that does. He's going to also bid medium. All right, so both players will reveal these simultaneously. And you're going to put what you bid up here. Japanese bid medium. Allies bid medium. And you're going to put that up there like that, so that you know what's going on. Now, how does that change the range, you say? All right, for that, you're going to have to go to another fun table. I didn't get it first. You're going to look at the range bid chart. If you're currently at long, you take your two bids and you match them up according to what was bid. So, for example, if a player bids medium and someone bids short, you find the medium short here, and your range is going to be short now. If you did long and medium, you find the two that match up, long and medium, and your new range is going to be long. Now, keep in mind there's an asterisk here, so you want to pay attention down at the bottom. And it also gives you a summary of how the ranges that you can bid according to the situation. So we did medium, medium, and as you can guess, we were at long range. Medium, medium puts us at medium. Pretty simple stuff there, although it took me a while to actually look at that chart. So just for the heck of it, we'll just move these a little bit closer. Now, the fun part. I don't know if you remember this from the counters, but every hit is going to change the stats on your naval units. Okay, here you want to look at page 12 in the core rulebook, and you'll see that each hit on a naval unit reduces the values of these items by 1. Gunnery strength, all ranges go down by 1 for the Fletcher here. So now he is a really weak unit, and he's at medium range, still can't fire a torpedo. He only has short-range torpedoes. The Fletcher, not doing so well. Naval Combat Phase 2. All right, I'm going to get rid of this too because I'm going to show you guys how this works. Okay, Naval Combat Phase 2. The Fletcher has been hit. Now, remember, his stats are reduced by 1. It's important to note that if you go below 0 strength, you're still at 0. Okay, so we're at medium range now, so we're going to use the 4 on this counter, the 4 on this counter, the 0, and the Fubuki has the advantage of being able to fire a torpedo at 3 strength. That medium range is that second number there. So you have to declare your targets, and I think we're going to do all the Japanese units are going to fire at the Indiana. And I'm going to fake a roll here to show you how a critical happens. All right, so let's get started on the Japanese side. It's best to do each side. For the Americans, they have to declare they're going to fire everything at the Nagato. So both sides are dumping everything they have onto the battleships. All right. Let's say the Nagato rolls to hit. He's got a strength 4. Let's say he gets a 0. All right, I'm going to back this out just a little bit here. We're at medium range. 4. A 0 is a hit. But remember, anytime you roll a 0, it's a critical. So you're going to look at your critical table, and you're going to find this on your sheet with the with that wacky hit table. So, for example, we're looking here with the Japanese screen. So you just want to find your hit table, and it tells you kind of what happens with a crit. Anytime you roll a 0 or 2 zeros with that, if you have the 4 notation, you're going to check this critical hit table. Now, let's say we roll now to see the critical hit influence, and we get a 7. Okay, so you look here, and that's going to put an additional hit on the Indiana. We're going to have 2 hits on the Indiana then. Now, the Fubuki fires a torpedo and his guns at the Indiana. Well, a 0, it's going to be pretty tough for him to hit. Again, an 8. And now we're going to fire the torpedo. Now, it must be noted that you cannot split a torpedo and have it fire at something else. All guns must be fired at the same target. So a torpedo is done just like the naval guns. It's a strength of 3. Oh, a 0. I'm rolling really well for the Japanese today. So we have a strength of 3, and a 0 is going to give us 1 hit. Now let's check the crit. Oh my god. Oh no, you want higher for the crit. So for the crit, you want to roll higher. No effect on that crit right there. So I'm kind of blowing the heck out of the Americans here. All right, so you want to replace that 2 with a 3. There we go. And that is all the firing for the Japanese player. Now we go to the American player. Now remember, this is not going to kick in yet. So we need to kind of set that aside. But he does have a hit, so he's going to be reduced. But anything below 0 is still a 0. So, well, I should say the strength in question is treated as a 0-4. Sorry, I almost got that wrong. It's an important thing to miss there, because now, even though he has a strength 0, he's now down to 0-4. He's going to need two hits, so to say, to get a hit off. Let's see what the Fletcher does. A 6? No, I can tell you right there. Nope. Because now he needs a 0 and a below 4. So the Fletcher, not the best destroyer, right? The Indiana is going to be firing at the Nagato. Okay, the Indiana rolls a 2. I had to pause it there because my dice scattered just about everything off the board. I should have my dice tower out, but I don't. The Indiana actually scores a 2 with a gunnery of 4. That is going to get a hit on the Nagato. Now, one other thing that's important to note. Japanese units with torpedoes can fire 2 torpedoes in an operation from those units. So this Fubuki is down to 1 torpedo. The United States can only fire 1 torpedo per operation. So the Japanese clearly have a better torpedo situation than the United States of America, of course. So Fubuki down to 1. So as you can see, this can get a little bit crowded. Now, I put these off to the side because I don't want to apply these hits, but Naval Combat Phase 2 is over. So now these will apply, and the United States Task Force is looking really bad right now. So remember, each one of these is going to subtract 1, and it's not looking good for the Indiana. So what do you do? What do you do to get out of this situation? We're going to go to Naval Combat Phase 3, and we're going to bid. But this time the United States is going to bid to withdraw from the combat. The Japanese player is kind of thinking, well, I'm at medium and I'm sitting pretty good because I can always get a free torpedo shot off here. So I'm not too concerned. I don't want to get any closer. I've only got 1 damage here. The United States player has a lot of damage. If I stay at medium, I can probably shoot him a little bit better. It's a whole cat and mouse game. So the Japanese player is going to bid medium, and the American player is going to bid to get the heck out of Dodge. He's going to do a withdrawal. So we'll move these over here like that. I hope I have these colors on the right side. I'm assuming red here, and I think I did it that proper. Anyway, we're going to do a withdraw here. And you'll see, whoops, yeah, that's right, W in range. Japanese player bids to stay at medium. Okay. We look at withdraw any. So they are going to try to exit out, and as they pull away, the Japanese player is going to get some free shots, but it's going to be at long range. So just make sure you watch out there with that. Oh, I'm sorry. I almost did that wrong. You almost caught me on camera. We were at medium. All right, withdraw any medium. They're going to get a medium shot, not a long shot. Okay. All right, I almost screwed that up. Everyone's like, oh, I got you, you son of a bitch. All right. So the Japanese player is going to get a free shot. It's kind of like in an RPG when you withdraw from combat. They're going to try to wrap you on the back of the head. Japanese player is going to get a free shot at medium range. Now, it's important to note, when someone does a withdrawal, you don't bring any new units into the combat, so you won't be pulling 4 units up. Instead, the withdrawing player moves all of his naval units in the hex into any adjacent water hex that contains no enemy naval units or dummies. If they're hemmed in and completely surrounded, they cannot withdraw. So what you'll see here is something to this effect. Let's just put these guys here. The United States player is going to withdraw, and he's going to go out to here, like so. Now, one of the important things about having advantage in this game is after Naval Combat Phase 3, which we're on that now, so we're not, it's obviously not past that. If we had stayed in the hex for Naval Combat Phase 3, there's only 3 phases. The advantage player then has the option to withdraw without being fired on. So it does have a being the advantage player has a lot of bonuses in this game, and we haven't really touched on the surface of that feature yet. But let's just say that after combat, if you stick it out and it's Naval Combat Phase 3, the advantage player can withdraw, and if he declines that option, the disadvantage player can withdraw. Also, if the advantage player does decide to withdraw, he doesn't get fired on. And again, if he declines, the disadvantage player can withdraw without being fired on. So it does kind of pay in a way to stick it out through Naval Combat Phase 3, but here we're not even going to take the chance. Now, the Japanese player is going to get a free shot here. Let's see what happens. Everything on the Indiana again. Now, the Nagato has taken a hit, so we're still considered at medium range. So he's going to fire, but he's at a strength of 3. He misses. The Fubuki is going to fire, and he needs a 0. He misses. The torpedo, his last torpedo, is going to fire. He's going to be at 0 now. He hit with the torpedo. I'm really rolling well tonight. That's amazing. All right, so a 3 and a 2 is going to get me a 1. So the Indiana does not get out unscathed. He's going to take another torpedo shot to the hull. All right, so not very eventful in that I would say the Japanese have won a major battle in the task force battle at Coral Sea. The American player is going to come out limping with 4 hits to the Indiana, which is on fire and taking on water. The Fletcher took a hit and is now going to have to try to screen and protect the Indiana. The Nagato took some minor structural damage with 1 hit. The Fubuki did rather well, out of torpedoes, but he did his damage. He did his job. So that is basically naval combat, a short and sweet example. Now, of course, there's ones where there's planes involved and more ships and a whole bunch of crazy stuff that can go on. I would highly advise you to read the rule book. And if you want to do naval combat yourself, start on page 51 and see how it works and get familiar with everything. But now you know how things work. And the Indiana is really, you know, he's down to a 0-4 here, just a plain 0 here, and a 3. So he's severely hurt. And he becomes crippled if he goes below 7, I believe. I think you have to go less than your starting value on hits. It does take a lot to bring the Indiana down, but you can definitely see he's going to have to limp back to port and try to repair, etc. Okay, so I hope this helps a little bit. These videos help me learn the different phases of this game and how things are done. This chart is on Board Game Geek, Pacific War Board Game Geek. It's under the file section. If you're not a big fan of, you know, tracing, going all the way down and doing this sort of thing, etc. I think I nailed everything. Let me know if I did that 0-4 thing right. I believe I did. All right. That's all for now, and we have some more stuff coming in next week. I think I've gotten everything I can afford at the moment, unless I sell more Warhammer stuff, but we'll see. All right. I will talk to everyone later, and hopefully this video helps.